Hey everybody, welcome back to another week of the LFM Sprint series. This week was week 11, so we're at Suzuka. Managed to get one race in here before the holidays really kick off. This is going to be a really clean race for us, which is good to keep our safety rating up and out of demotion to rookies, but there's going to be a lot of chaos that actually happens on around us. Qualifying for this one though, the best I was able to do was almost a 202 flat, good enough to put us in P13 in this particular race. But anyways, let's kick this one off and let's just simply watch this chaos unfold in front of us. Please survive, please survive. Oh my gosh. That was carnage. Yeah, honestly, I think that was probably one of the roughest starts I've seen since playing online multiplayer in this game, especially in LFM. Throughout all that, we are going to end up losing a few positions as I was trying to be really careful going through there. I just did not want to get involved in any sort of way. Looking back at it though, it just seems like these guys tried to almost go 4 wide right at the start and there just wasn't space, and it just leads to this domino effect of cars spinning around everywhere. And I know I'm definitely one to lack a lot of aggression at the start, which is going to cost me some positions, but when I see things like this happen, I generally feel kind of justified in that. I just want to take it easy and let the race settle. On board with one of the drivers behind where it all happens, we'll actually kind of see this in action. It all kicks off in front, but they kind of try to just keep going. They try to work their way through, and they're going to end up getting cleaned up by it a little bit and definitely taking some damage on their front end. Back to our race though, after being incredibly slow, probably frustrating the guy behind me after all that happened and lacking a little bit of trust for everyone around me, it's going to end up settling us into P16 for a while, and about 8 minutes later we are going to start to lose a little bit of touch with the McLaren ahead of us, but as we come into this lap, that's all going to change here soon. Say it took a while, but we started to finally find our pace. We're back down into the low 202s at the very least. Definitely not really where I want to be in the practice servers. I'd been able to get down into the low 201, sometimes breaking 201, but I think that this race was set up a little differently. Qualifying times were generally a little bit slower. Anyways, as we started to find that pace, we had a pretty good showing through the S-curves there, closing the gap a lot to the McLaren ahead, so it's actually going to be a bit of a race again now. Through turns 8 and 9, we get a really good run on the McLaren, but we're going to see one of my chronic issues come into play here. I do have a lot of hesitancy when it comes to passing other cars. For now, I definitely seem to be erring on the side of safety. It's really difficult for me to be aggressive, especially when our safety rating is a little bit on the cusp of rookies. We haven't been out of them for very long. I do expect over time though that especially when we have some safety rating cushion and I've gotten a bit more comfortable just being near the other cars in general, that we probably will be able to be a little bit more aggressive on passes. In time, I suppose we'll see. Unfortunately, that's just not going to be the case today though. As we come out of the spoon curve, we're going to have another good run on the McLaren ahead. We're going to be right in their toe, but we're just going to end up backing off again. I just don't feel safe going up into the next curve side by side in any way. It's a really fast left-hander. And honestly, just taking this curve in general, I feel like I'm riding the edge. So once again, we're just going to kind of keep on chilling behind this McLaren for now. Going into the final chicane, we get pretty close once again, but there's just not quite enough speed there. We're not going to end up being able to close the gap for the main straight. We will definitely keep in touch with them though, but as we go into the next lap, we are actually going to see the Ferrari behind start to get really close to us. Going into Degner Curve, I was really scared they were going to go for a move there, but luckily they don't. They back off, but they're going to stay on our back end for a while, or at least a lot longer than I'd like. So only about half a second splitting the car ahead of me to the car behind me, so feeling pretty nervous at the moment. Going into the hairpin, I was a little bit nervous of some contact from the back, but the Ferrari goes a bit wide to make sure to avoid. We do manage to stay really close to the McLaren ahead out of the hairpin, so we have their toe as we go around this long bend. And I certainly wasn't expecting anything to happen here, but as we come up towards Spoon Curve, their outside tires are just going to barely clip the grass on the curb there, and we're going to end up being able to go by. Finally giving us some sort of position change after, I don't know, about 12 minutes? That does put us up into P15 for now though, and we're about a second and a half from P14, and that gap's going to stay about the same for a while. A lap and a half later, we will end up setting a new best lap of finally under 202, so definitely getting quicker and quicker, and that becomes pretty evident as we come around turns 1 and 2. We do start to close the gap a little bit on P14. Between turns 1 and 2 in the S-curves, it did feel like the strongest sector of the track for me. I was able to usually make up some ground here, but it was the other parts of the track that were a bit of a struggle. So definitely more practice to have on those other sectors. Come on. Come on. Less than a second. We can be faster. Yeah, I am trying to pump myself up a little bit there. I do indeed know that I can be faster, but we are going to be here for a little while. In fact, until the next lap. The gap hasn't really changed that much, but as we come through the S-curves, this time there's going to be a bit of an incident ahead of us. We're going to have multiple cars off. We're going to go really slow through here, and then the guy in front of us was involved. I wasn't really sure what he was going to do. I continued to take it slow, and then he ends up getting really loose right in front of us and spinning. Looking back at the replay, it looks like they went a little narrow on one of the S-curves and ended up with a poor exit, and the Ferrari behind is just going to be carrying a lot more speed and come right into their quarter panel. Unfortunately, they let themselves roll right back onto the racing line and end up making contact with a few other cars, but then later when they spun right in front of us, they end up taking out one of the Ferraris that was behind us earlier and was actually giving us a hard time. While certainly unfortunate for those involved, it does put us up into P12, so now we have a net gain of 1 position on the day so far. Definitely pretty happy with that. As we start to get later in the race, only about 4 minutes left now though, we are going to start to close the gap on them pretty solidly. They're only about half a second ahead of us now as we're in our strongest sector of the track. And each time I watch this back, I just really wish I could be stronger in the other parts of the track, because I do end up gaining a lot of ground on people here, but later in the lap I just end up losing it usually. Maybe when I get a chance to do the race again in the future, I'll have a better time with that. Anyways, at this point we've managed to bring the gap down to about half a second, so feeling pretty good about maybe being able to get this position, but I just am not sure. Come on, feel the pressure. Ooh, not me though. Don't need me to feel the pressure. Yeah, I was really hoping that with me behind that coming into the end of the race here, maybe they would feel a bit of pressure and they might make a mistake, but I end up making a little one instead there. As we come into the hairpin, they do end up on the grass a little bit, going a little wide on the exit, but they carry a pretty good amount of speed out, so once again, we're just not really able to get that pressure on them. At this point, I really had felt like I missed my chance. With 3 minutes left in the race, it's not necessarily over. We could still catch back up and make a pass, but we're going to skip to the last lap because it didn't really happen. In fact, we lose a little bit of touch with them here. Although I guess I say we lost touch with them, but we only lost a couple tenths of a second, and through here we are going to get a little bit back. Once again into the better sector of the track for me as we go through the S-curves. But things are definitely starting to change. Ooh, doesn't feel like it's giving me quite as much grip now. It did almost feel like this came on somewhat suddenly, but it seems like the Porsche ahead was also struggling. We were both definitely going slower this lap, and the last one actually. So I suppose we were starting to reach the limit of our tires a little bit, at least as far as setting super fast lap times go. At least super fast for me, that is. A lot of people can definitely do this track under 2 minutes. I don't know how yet, but maybe we'll get there. Anyways, at this point, we were mostly just doing everything we could to try to stay in contact with this Porsche ahead at the off chance that something may happen, but as we come up into the hairpin here, they're going to go pretty wide. I thought for a second that that could end up being the mistake I needed to close the gap, but unfortunately, just not really. We end up having about the same gap coming out of that hairpin, and it's going to take us all the way into the finish here in P12. So technically, we only had a net position gain of 1 on the day. Nothing super glamorous, but I was actually really happy with this result. We managed to get through this race with only 1 incident point, going beyond the track limits only 1 time. So definitely a big boost to our safety rating. Now before we close, we are coming up into the holidays and the New Year's, so it might be difficult for me to participate in next week's race. I will do my best to give it a shot. I do like Kyalami, but we'll just have to see for now. There are a lot of family functions going on. Either way, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. We will be putting out more soon. But until then, we'll see you next time.